For centuries, humans looked at birds and felt small. They watched wings cut through the sky and believed the earth was a prison. Many tried to escape it. Most failed. Some were laughed at. Some were ruined. Some died. By the late 1800s, flying was no longer just considered impossible. It was considered embarrassing to believe in. Then quietly, without permission from science or society, two unknown brothers decided to challenge the sky. They were not engineers. They were not wealthy. They were not respected. Yet they would change human history forever. This is not just the story of flight. This is the painful journey of the Wright brothers. In the 19th century, inventors were obsessed with engines. They believed more power would force machines into the air. They were wrong. Machines lifted and flipped. Gliders rose and fell. Men lost control and crashed into the ground. Flying machines weren't failing because they lacked power. They failed because no one could control them. By the time Wilbur and Orville Wright were growing up, most scientists believed the problem was already solved and unsolvable. Human flight was a dead dream. Wilbur Wright was born in 1867. Orville Wright followed 4 years later. They grew up in Dayton, Ohio, in a modest home filled with books, discussion, and questions. Their father encouraged curiosity. Their mother encouraged problem-solving. One day, their father brought home a small toy helicopter made of cork, bamboo, and rubber bands. It flew for a few seconds, then fell to the floor. But something else stayed in the air. A question. If this toy can fly, why can't humans? That question never left them. Wilbur and Orville were different in every way. Wilbur was quiet, thoughtful, deeply analytical. He observed before he spoke. He calculated before he acted. Orville was energetic and imaginative. He loved building, testing, adjusting. He learned by doing. Separately, they were incomplete. Together, they were dangerous. But no one saw them that way. They never attended college. They never studied engineering. Instead, they opened a bicycle shop. To the world, they were mechanics. To themselves, they were students of balance. A bicycle doesn't stay upright by force. It stays upright through constant correction. One day, Wilbur had a realization that changed everything. If a human can balance a bicycle while moving, maybe a human can balance a machine in the air. That single thought separated them from every inventor before them. Their bicycle shop became a secret laboratory. In 1899, Wilbur wrote to the Smithsonian Institution asking for flight research. Soon after, they began building gliders. Not planes, not engines. Gliders. They wanted to understand the air before fighting it. They traveled to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, a place with strong winds and soft sand. It was perfect for learning. It was perfect for crashing. The gliders failed again and again. Wings collapsed. Machines flipped violently. The wind destroyed months of work in seconds. Locals laughed. Experts dismissed them. Other inventors mocked them quietly. Every failure cost money they barely had. Every trip drained their savings. At times, even they questioned themselves. But instead of quitting, they questioned something else. The data. Most inventors trusted published aerodynamic tables, believing them to be scientific truth. The Wright brothers discovered something disturbing. The data was wrong. So they did something radical. They built their own wind tunnel inside the bicycle shop. They tested more than 200 wing shapes. They measured lift, drag, and pressure with precision no one else attempted. Quietly, unknowingly, they created the most accurate flight data in the world. This was the moment history almost missed. While others chased engines, the Wright brothers chased control. They developed something no one else had achieved. 3-axis control. Pitch, roll, and yaw. For the first time in history, a human could steer an aircraft instead of fighting it. This was the missing key to flight. But control alone was not enough. They still needed power. No engine on Earth was light enough. So Orville built one by hand. It produced 12 horsepower and weighed only 180 pounds. Fragile, unimpressive, enough. They named the aircraft the Flyer. December 17th, 1903. The morning was freezing. The wind howled across empty sand dunes. There was no crowd, no reporters, no witnesses who believed. Orville lay flat on the machine. Wilbur steadied the wings. The engine sputtered. The propellers spun. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground disappeared. 12 seconds, 120 feet. In that silence, humanity left the earth. The world had changed, but it didn't know it yet. When they returned home, they expected curiosity. Instead, they found disbelief. The press ignored them. The government dismissed them. Scientists openly doubted them. Some claimed others had done it first. Some accused them of exaggeration. For 5 long years, the world turned away. They had conquered the sky but lost the battle for belief. They didn't argue. They didn't beg for recognition. They went back to work. They improved the machine, extended flight times, perfected control. They waited patiently. In 1908, in France, they flew publicly. This time, planes stayed in the air for minutes, then longer. Crowds gasped. Governments rushed forward. There was no doubt anymore. The Wright brothers were pioneers of the sky. Fame arrived late, and it arrived heavy. Wilbur carried the burden of lawsuits, patents, and constant travel. He fought to protect their work from being stolen. The pressure drained him slowly. In 1912, Wilbur died of typhoid fever. He was only 45 years old. Orville lived longer, but after 1918, he never flew again. The sky had taken everything. Orville once said they were lucky to grow up in an environment that encouraged curiosity. But luck was not enough. They succeeded because they refused applause. They chose understanding. They accepted failure. And they changed the world quietly. Every airplane you see today, every journey across oceans, every path through the sky, all of it began in a small bicycle shop. 2 brothers. One impossible question. If birds can fly, why can't we? So here is the question history leaves us with. What dream today is being laughed at, just like flight once was? Because the world has a habit. It always doubts the people who change it first.